Fletcher Tabato.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to acknowledge Mr Ducey tonight. I actually asked to speak on this bill. It's not my usual specialist subject, but I'd like to acknowledge the fact that Mr Ducey had his private member's bill drawn, but I would say that it's a bit of a Ducey of a bill, Mr Ducey. and sir, I beg your forbearance. Let me just read from the purpose statement, because a lot of what Mr Ducey said in his opening speech, I'd like to take this time to contest and ask questions, but it comes from the purpose. So to bring transparency, which is fantastic, to public collectors who are paid or remunerated to collect or solicit donations, subscriptions, signatures or other support for an organisation or cause in a public street or place. And this is part of the issue, the main issue, to ensure that the public is fully informed of all relevant information. And Mr Ducey acknowledged quite a few of the deficiencies of this bill in terms of that transparency, sir. So I'll just go into that now. Firstly, New Zealand First would like to acknowledge that, yes, the intent of the bill is right. I think what you're trying to achieve is appropriate. And we would add, we are one of the top 5 charitable countries in the world. New Zealand First actually has asserted that volunteers kind of the fabric of New Zealand society that enables society to continue almost day to day. Numbers were spoken about tonight, $1.2 billion in the last financial year, 400,000 New Zealanders contributing to charity, sir. So we think that is remarkable, and long may it continue. But here's the rub. We think Mr Ducey is misinformed. He says that by having collectors declare that they're going to be paid will increase transparency. Well, that's a very small part of the costs of a charity and an organisation of this type. What we have seen in the very recent past, sir, is the reality that wages are often a very small part of what a charity, whether they're registered or not, around the world have decided to allocate to the end beneficiary. So then the question is, well, actually, does this improve transparency? Because the wages may be part of it, but actually what charities have chosen to incorporate in costs and retain from their collections, sir, has varied wildly. And this, Mr Ducey, is only a very, very small part of that. So the next point that Mr Ducey raised was the Kiwi spirit. This is the intent. You know, it doesn't sit within the Kiwi spirit that you know, people are being paid to collect money for charities. And then he talks about transparency. Well, where were you when I had my members' bill a couple of weeks ago asking for transparency? Excuse me, sir, my apologies. Where was the member when I was asking for exactly the same thing about transparency and about democracy for this nation? It doesn't seem to sit well, and seems to be a conflict there. And then the other issue which has been raised, I think I only heard it actually once tonight, but it goes to the, it's a huge issue actually. It's where the collection takes place, and it speaks about public places. So the issue there is if I'm on a supermarket car park or in their entrance or in their foyer, this doesn't apply. It has no bearing on anything I do, whether I'm a registered charity or not. So there's a huge disparity, and I would suggest that it creates huge gaps. Another speaker earlier spoke about, well, what about phone solicitation? So there's a whole lot of questions about consistency on how you would apply this, sir. The issue also is, you know, why not make it apply to everyone? Why not a registered charity as well. And then...
Order. The member's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Stuart Smith.